Deputy Catherine Connolly.
Once again, I want to thank Sinn Féin for the motion, and I welcome the opportunity to speak on it. And I agree with almost all of the motion, almost all of it. And I welcome that they want to bring forward measures to effectively ban investment funds and many of the other things set out. However, I have great concerns about the use of emergency planning and procurement powers, so I reserve my position on that. In contrast to the rural independents, I haven't come across anybody who's made an objection or complaint. What they make are submissions, and they express their concerns, and the planning legislation provides for that, and it's vitally important. And indeed, the courts have repeatedly said that the role of the individual outside of the two parties is extremely important for our democracy, and they have praised the role that individuals have played. And I can tell you, in my time, and I was elected in '99, and I hate going back, but my biggest difficulty was the underfunding and under-resourcing of the planning authorities, which remains to this day, and I understand there are hundreds of vacancies. Hundreds of vacancies. So the underfunding and the under-resourcing. Secondly, the continuous reduction of the involvement of the public because of repeated myths like that people are objecting for nothing. And so we brought in legislation to say if you didn't make a submission at local authority level, then you were precluded from doing that at Board Penala level. And then we brought in fees to further discourage people from taking part in the planning process. And all of the time, my experience was, and the difficulties of the interference in the planning law, let me see, by various means, by big developers, by planning permission being given with certain conditions, and the conditions never complied with it. And then we saw that when the planning tribunal reported. Remember that we're inclined to forget the planning tribunal that cost a fortune and set out that, what was the words they used? It was systemic from top to bottom. The misuse of the planning laws, I can't remember. The Minister might help me. I'm getting tired in the evening in relation to it. But the abuse of the planning laws on a systemic basis, and money passing hands repeatedly. And then from 1999 to now, I've had the privilege of being a city councillor and a TD. And I have watched, as with health, the failure to invest in our local authorities and the taking away of the power from them continuously, either one way or another, by leaving vacancies and not giving enough money and then blaming them. And I'm a critic of the local authority, let me tell you, never of the staff. Never of the staff, certainly of some of the management, but most importantly of government policies that have seen them starved of funds and starved of a role. So they spend their time now privatising and outsourcing. I've seen, I couldn't tell you, actually I could count it on one hand how many people are directly employed as plasterers, carpenters, electricians and so on. Everything privatised. I have watched a housing crisis allowed to come into being deliberately following government policy. And back when I was a proud member of the Labour Party, one of the first speeches I made was at a Labour conference in relation to the unaffordability of housing. And I remember pointing to the headlines in the Irish Times at the time and the cost of housing. And do you remember the Kenny report? Half a century ago. 51 years ago, and the Kenny report told us at that time that there was a huge problem and that we needed to give local authorities power to acquire land at existing use value with a 25% bonus for the owners, pointing out clearly that we needed to do something 51 years ago. Fast forward now, I'm elected in '99 and there's a housing crisis, and we build some houses every year, and we have progress because we get a quarterly report and it tells us where we're building, how we're building and when construction will be completed. And then go to 2009, that last column, construction suspended, never to build a house again, Minister. Not a single, I'm not given to exaggeration, I don't need to, the facts are so damning. Not a single public house built from 2009 onwards until 20 or 21. Huge part of the problem. And I'm here since 16, and I've grabbed every moment and every opportunity through Sinn Féin, through our own motions, and whenever I can, to highlight that there's an alternative vision for this country in terms of housing. And it has been deliberately created because we've relied on the market. And the market has repeatedly failed, and each government, and it's really extraordinary that the three parties continue with this in view of the absolute damning figures. And the figures are coming off our tongues as if they don't mean something. 13,514 people in homeless accommodation. 4,105 are children. And various experts have pointed out to us that that's an underestimate. And so the government tell us, well, not in so many words, but my interpretation is that that's just collateral damage. Really, the housing policy is brilliant, even though the emergency figures keep rising, even though the figures for deaths are just absolutely appalling on our streets. And I'm walking past people on the street every night as I go home to my hotel room, and I'm wondering what's happening to me as I look at the gaiety with the recesses, which has now become a bedroom for somebody. And I'm saying, what has happened to me here? What has happened to this country when at one stage we were outraged that there were people on the ground? And I'm watching with no exaggeration as the seagulls come over and take the little brown bag that sits beside them. And I'm watching various voluntary groups give out money and blankets. And I'm saying, I'm part of this doll that's allowing this to happen. This is an obscenity. And I am so tired of your spin, and I want to work with you because I think there's a solution. And an integral part of the solution is to face the facts. And so we have the Simon community. This is their 30-second snapshot of 16 areas. And they're telling us the position as is. This is the 30-second snapshot. The study examined the availability of property in 16 areas. And in 9 of them, there was no property available under the main government scheme, which is HAP. Nothing. That included Galway City, and 1 property was available in the county. That's the position, and this is their 30-second snapshot. Surely any minister worth their salt would say, Jesus, we're doing something wrong here. How is that happening when our main scheme is the HAP? And then we look at Galway City, and I'll move out to the county. First of all, the famous, what's it called that was set up? I can't remember at this stage. I've mentioned it so often. The crisis report, or the social housing task force. Can you imagine? It's sitting now for over 5 years, and we still haven't got one single comprehensive report from them analysing the situation in Galway. Do you know what they do? They get more and more presentations. They get more and more presentations from homeless groups on the ground to tell us the situation is getting worse. And we look at Galway City and County. Build public housing on public land. That's one part of the solution. No affordable housing, no other housing, public housing on public land, and extend the limits in terms of income so we have a diverse range of people there. Stop the negotiation that's going on with the Dockland that's going to give land at a premium price for premium housing to the Land Development Agency. Do you think that's a solution to an emergency in Galway? Selling off land so they can fund an extension into the sea that can't go ahead if one takes the storms realistically and believes what's happening in terms of climate change. And then we look at Can Station, something like 14 acres in the centre of Galway being developed by that body without any connection with the other bodies. And then we go to the county, Cargá Cheangach, at Harshach na Gaeltachtas Mósa Tír, an Cararua, agus an Chorus Shericus, Nilain Chorasan, agus Thon Shericus of the raw sewage, and Shericus of, a called Giracus Josanishka. Ni féidir éonrad a thógáil an sin, mar níl an Chorus Cuid an aim. And so, go to Carrow, and no treatment facility. For how long? 20-something years. We table questions, nothing to do with the minister, it's to do with Irish Water. A site was picked most unsuitable, all their eggs in one basket. If you excuse the bad pun, I can call something else in the basket, and it's not eggs, and nothing. Where we could have balanced regional development. Balanced county and city development, simply not happening. We have any amount of schemes with no vision. There is no vision because there's no acknowledgement that we cannot have a republic based on the market. The market has a role. But for a democracy and for a republic, we need homes as the most basic, the most fundamental segment of society that will give security and allow people to participate. And instead of that, we've a jigsaw without a picture, and we've boasting about a first-time buyer scheme that's simply keeping the houses too high and the prices. And you talk that we don't want people to own their homes. Yes, I do, but at an affordable price. Not that they have to work every God-given hour to get a mortgage that they can't even afford in the first place.